there are two areas that I specialize in. The first is I work with entrepreneurs on crafting their pitch to investors so they can raise early stage funds, seed rounds A, B, or early stage where they're raising anywhere from $500,000 and up, right? $500,000 to maybe $1.2 million. That's the early stage. And so they have to go out and pitch to often angel investors or sometimes venture funds, right? And really have a tight story that hooks them from the beginning. And then they usually open it up to Q&A where the investor will grill them. So that's one area of expertise that I have. And then the other that I concentrate on is working with entrepreneurial speakers, not entrepreneurs per se, but they tend to be more motivational speakers or speakers with a deeper, broader, heartfelt message that they need to get out. They'll often speak to corporations. And I've worked with people also in executives, but they have to be daring executives. They can't be executives that are willing to toe the party line. They have to be the ones that are really ready to open up and be more transparent. Most executives are, sort of somewhat stoic and hiding behind the CEO title. So, but those are the two areas of expertise, speeches and pitches.
And how did you come to this? You attended a TED Talk?
Right, so, a series of accidents. So the bottom fell out of the market when I was producing large-scale live events. And so, of course, the first thing, budget to be slashed, were the events themselves. And then I went to a Tech Coast Angel pitch event. And I met a Tech Coast Angel who introduced me to another Tech Coast Angel who was producing a TED event. And I went to him and said, I can be a speechwriter. I'd never written a speech in my life, by the way, except for these 90-second pitches, right? But I felt like I could do it. And apparently I convinced him, and he's like, okay, great, I'll give you 8 speakers. And then that's how I got into that. And I was like, okay, 8 speakers, and how many weeks do I have? Well, it's in 3 weeks. Okay, that'll be good. And so it was like round the clock, but I learned so much. And volunteering, I highly recommend it. Just jump in, and that's what I did. I volunteered because, there wasn't a job to be had. So I was like, well, jump in and embrace this fully. And that gave me permission to make mistakes and to just experiment. I was like, well, I got nothing to lose. Nobody's paying me at the end, right? And that's what I did with the fast pitches for the Tech Coast Angels, and then also again for the TEDx events. And I've probably written over 100 TEDx speeches. Wow. So I really learned a lot from those two. And it was about 3 years in that I started actually, confessing. Well, people would say, what do you do for a living? And I'm saying like, oh, I'm a speechwriter. And I couldn't believe that it was coming out of my mouth until I saw their faces, and they were like, oh, really? Like politics, they'd say? Like, oh, no. And that was interesting because often people will say to you, what do you do for a living? And I realized that I was getting these really, horrified looks. So I thought, okay, how can I change this up, right? And so then, and have fun, because I wasn't having fun when I saw their reaction. So then when people came to me, so what do you do for a living? And I'd say, well, ever give a speech? And I get one of two answers, probably 95% of the time, just like a look of horror and sheer terror on their, oh, God, I hate speaking. Like they want to run away. Or I get that one, few crazy people are like, I love speaking. It's fabulous. Those crazy extroverts. But then I found when I asked a question, then it was a new way to get into, because I had engaged, I had emotions around it. Everybody has, was it Jerry Seinfeld that said, I'd rather be in the coffin than give the eulogy, right? And it's so true. And then, but once they had that feeling around it, then they were really way more inquisitive, and it was really fun. So that's one recommendation I have for anybody who's a writer. Just have fun with what you do and don't apologize. A lot of times we apologize for what we're doing. Like for 3 years, I was like, oh yeah, well, I do this thing called TED. Have you ever heard of it? In the beginning, people were like, TED, what's that? And I'd say, well, it's technology, education, design. They'd be like, right?
Right. And now everybody wants to talk.
Yeah, yes,
Totally changed.
Exactly. So, yeah, that's how I got into all of it.
Had you been to Toastmasters prior to that?
I had been. I had been doing Toastmasters, and Toastmasters is wonderful. I highly recommend that people go to Toastmasters, especially because there's varying degrees there are some really accomplished people in Toastmasters, and it will take you through to many levels. It won't take you to the stage in the way that I work with my speakers, but it is a wonderful workout once a week. And if you can join a club where you can work with, go to do the workout once a week, a club that meets every week, not a club that meets only twice a month. They lose their momentum. But the clubs that meet once a week, you will really start to work that muscle and feel like, wow, hey, I feel like I nailed that question. And you'll take it out into the real world, and you'll find that you really build your speaking confidence. I've seen people who were barely able to speak or completely nervous or almost to tears, and 6 months later, you wouldn't even recognize them. Amazing transformations. So especially for business, I highly recommend Toastmasters. But if you want to go beyond that to the big money, to where my speakers are making anywhere from $15,000 and up per speech, then you really want to work with somebody who takes you to the next level.